The stuff that I'm going to talk about, I will tell you that over the years as a nurse, I learned, and as a hopeful MD once upon a time, these are things that I've learned, and so I'm going to kind of share some of the stuff with you today, but there is so much trying to condense that it's almost impossible, so I will touch over some things with you today. Who can tell me what a project manager does? Right. So if there's problems down the line, the project manager is never very happy, right? Okay, so what part of your body is a plant manager? What? Okay, one more. Try another. What's underneath your right rib? You lay on the bed and the doctor presses down and checks to see if you have pain. What is that organ? The what? The liver. Exactly. So our plant manager is the liver, and it's right underneath the right rib, and if you can press it and you're in pain, that means your liver is inflamed and it has some sort of problems, okay? What great capacity does the liver have that other organs in your body does not? Okay, what else? If a lizard loses their tail, what happens to that lizard tail? It regenerates. So what capacity does the liver have? It can regenerate, okay? It's very important. So remember, it all works out together. Okay. And did you know that basically like every 120 days, what happens, what gets rejuvenated in your body that the liver uses? Blood cells, okay? So blood cells usually last about 120 days, and then they get rejuvenated. So you basically says, I feel lousy today. We'll wait a little bit longer, and your cells rejuvenate, so you're a whole new you in many respects, okay? So basically, when you and I eat anything in our mouth, guess where all that food or all those nutrients go to? What organ? The liver, okay? So once it gets broken out, it gets reabsorbed into what is called the portal system, and it's returned right back again to the liver to further break it down. Okay, so when you chew the food in your mouth, the digestive process begins, and you begin to chew the food. Okay, you need to start breaking it, mixing it with your saliva, so it's easier to absorb. If you swallow your food basically whole and goes into your stomach, your body has to work a lot harder, okay? A lot harder. So what other process happens in your stomach? Yes. What other process happens in your stomach? It becomes kind of almost like a soupy stuff, exactly, mush. Yes. I know, but that's animals. They're always like, they're never going to have enough, so they gobble it out. But we as humans, we have an intellect by God, so we need to do things a little bit different. Okay, so once that food goes to the stomach and it starts going down to the intestine, the bladder, the gallbladder has a function. Does anybody know what the gallbladder does? Exactly. And it also has other chemicals that break down proteins into what we call amino acids, okay? So the liver does the remarkable stuff. So your blood cells last 120 days, so they go through the liver. So if the cell is not functioning very well, what does the liver do? It destroys it. It breaks it down, okay? And what does all those waste products, what happens to it then? Does anybody know? It goes into another chemical reaction and it becomes bile. And it is stored in what organ? The gallbladder, okay? And I'm sorry, maybe next time I will have diagrams so I can show you. So the red blood cells, the old ones, go to the liver. That breaks it down to the bile. It's stored into your gallbladder. So as you're eating food, Your brain starts doing its knowledge of it, and your bladder notices, your liver notices that there's food coming out, and as if all that mush passes down from the stomach into the intestine, these chemicals are released, okay? And it starts breaking down all these fats. It breaks all these amino acids. Your body cannot heal. It cannot repair your body if you don't have fats and you do not have amino acids. Okay? What happens to a lot of people when the doctor tells them you've got to go on a diet because you're 300 pounds or whatever? What is the first thing that most people cut out? Sugar is good, but what else? What? Fats. Okay? But what is your brain made out of? Fat. Every single cell in your body has a little membrane. And what does that membrane made out of? Fat and what else? What does your body need to heal? Fat and what else? Amino acids, proteins, okay? So, if you are going on a diet and you are going to lose weight, do you quit out the amino acids, the proteins? Do you quit the fats? No. No. Okay? Your body needs those two things. So if you take medicines that decrease the fat that goes to your brain, that goes to every cell, and remember, all your hormones are made of what? Fats. Fats. So fats are very essential for your well-being. There is some people, as they get older, you touch their skin and it's like leathery, so is mine. Why? It's because we haven't ingested enough fats in our body, okay? So we can put lotions and potions on our skin, and it's really nice for a little bit, but the body absorbs it. So you need to start feeding your body from the inside out, okay? So we need amino acids and what else? Fats, okay? And it produces the hormones. It protects our brain. It protects all the membranes in our cells. Very, very important. In the American society, what is the most common thing that we as Americans eat for breakfast? Exactly. And a cereal is what? A sugar. It is also called a refined what? A refined carbohydrate. Okay? And many of us eat bread, which is what? Refined carbohydrate. We eat cakes, which are what? Refined carbohydrates. We eat pasta, which is what again? White rice. Pizza, pies, potatoes. And the worst of them all is, what did you say? Sugar. Sugar is the worst, okay? High fructose corn syrup is made from what? Corn. And do you think that they get the corn out there and they squeeze it and crunch it and do all that and out comes the sugar? It's a chemical reaction. It's basically, I mean, it tastes good, I have to admit to it, but it's not good for our bodies. Our bodies cannot do well for it. Okay? In the TV, there's always been, and I haven't had a TV for 2 years, but there was a commercial. This person comes and says, sugar is sugar. Is sugar the same as what God created? It's totally different. The sugar that God created, we are able to ingest into our bodies, and it's used immediately. And to what organ does all this stuff goes through first? The liver, exactly. And it goes in, the rest of it keeps getting broken down. Sugar is a very large molecule, okay? And it has to be broken down, and the proteins also need to be broken down because tiny molecules have to pass through that membrane that is made out of what? Amino acids and fats. Exactly. So it has to be small enough to fit through there, okay? Otherwise, it doesn't work. Okay? So remember, fat is very essential. What are two of the most important fats that you can probably eat without any complication that God created? What are two of the main ones? Avocado, okay? Olive oil. And the other one that comes in this heart thing that you break? Coconuts. Yeah. Coconut oil is one of the oils that can go in through the system without having to be broken down in the liver. It goes into the system. As I told you before, coconut oil is an antifungal, antibacterial, and antiviral. So it does multiple things. God is just amazing, okay? Years ago, there was one doctor that produced a book, and he did just amazing, and people used it. Do you remember the Atkins diet? What was so important about this Atkins diet? It had proteins, but also what else? It had fats and very low what? Carbohydrates. That's exactly what. And it's been told that if Dr. Atkins had lived it long enough, he would have become a vegetarian. There's no ifs and buts. Can you do me a favor, and can you read Genesis 1:29 for me, please? Could you? And in this verse, God tells us since the beginning of time what you and I need to eat. So the further the food is changed from what God created to what we and you put in our mouths, the more medical problems we have, the more time we spend at the doctors and everything else. Could you please?
Genesis 1:29. And God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. Ye shall have them for food.
Okay. It's something really, really easy. Okay? So what I'm basically trying to tell you, the problem is not the fats, it's not all the vegetables, it's the carbs, it's the refined foods that we have. Okay? I am going to, let me see how much time, 5 more minutes. It is very important because, as I told you before, the liver does all these things. It breaks down the fats into little tiny molecules. And the fat, therefore, is stored in 3 different places. One of them is into the liver. Okay, so part of the liver, and as some of you may know, some people get what they call a fatty liver disease. And you do not need to be an alcoholic to have that disease, okay? It's our diet. The other place it gets stored, it's in the muscle. So let's say that this morning you don't have time to eat right away, but you need to run and do your walking around. Your body pulls that energy from the muscle and uses that energy. Like if you're being chased by a dog or whatever, that's where the energy comes from, okay? It's really important. The other place that it gets stored is in fat cells. How many fats, do I have more fat cells today than I had 5 years ago? Does anybody know? Oh, well, tentatively. Okay, 3 years ago. Is a child born with basically the same equal amount of fat cells as an infant as they are when they're 60 or 70? They basically are. Some cells die, but we're basically born with the same amount of fat cells, okay? So when I eat more carbs and cakes and cookies, the fat cell gets just bigger and bigger and bigger, okay? The one amazing thing about the liver and the fat cells, if I eat toxins, if I eat a bad medicine or anything else, guess where it's stored? The liver stores it where? In what cells? The fat cells. The fat cells, okay? So it's a very protective mechanism. There is so much amazing stuff, and I'm kind of running out of time, but I'll tell you, God is amazing. So you and I can basically survive out of eating vegetarian food. Grains, as we had talked about, they're very high in protein, but they're also very high in carbs. So we need to kind of watch how much carbs that we eat. Originally, I think, I can't remember the percentage of carbs that basically Dr. Atkins decreased it down, I think, to 20%. Legumes, they're very high in protein and very low in carbs. Seeds, very high in protein and very low on carbs. Nuts, very high in protein and very low on carbs. So if you want to decrease your weight, feel better, and just your mind gets more clear and everything else, decrease your refined carbs. I am proof of it, okay? In the last 5 months, I've gone from 150 pounds to 117 pounds, and I'm still eating. So you can actually do it. Return back to the food that God has created and away from the food that man has produced. God bless you, and see you next time. Amen.